Hi, and welcome to the Intentional Wealth Update from Morton Brown Family Wealth. I'm Dennis Morton.
Hi, and I'm Katie Brown.
Katie, we've decided to revisit our video content and the creation of these videos to talk about what's on our minds. There certainly is no shortage of things to talk about at any given time. But we've chosen different means of communicating, be it podcasting, newsletters, and video has been an important part of that. You've given us great feedback on it. So here we are. We're going to talk on camera today.
Yeah, excited to be back.
Today's topic is talking about uncertainty and living in uncertain times, but specifically the mistakes that some of us make when we address uncertainty and the world happening around us. Katie, this is a really hot topic. We're picking it up in client conversations, not so much in terms of optimism or pessimism, but just confusion.
Yes. I think that there is both optimism and pessimism as well, but yeah, a lot of confusion. We do expect this year to be uncertain. And if I'm being truthful, we expect every year to be uncertain, but there's a lot kind of on the docket for this year. You know, some tax laws potentially sunsetting, maybe not, new political leadership and new agendas. And so that does create an environment where people are kind of questioning, all right, what direction are we going to go into and what does that mean for me?
Right. That's a great point. I mean, we talk about certainty. When have we ever been certain about anything? I think it's interesting that sometimes people look for certainty in their financial lives where it doesn't show up in any other aspect of their life. I'm raising 4 kids at home. My evening is not going to be certain tonight. I have no idea what I'm walking into.
Right. But in some areas, you expect that. And you expect driving on the highway, you don't know if somebody's going to, cut you off or not. And you have to be you have to be alert. But you expect a certain amount of uncertainty. And so I do find it fascinating sometimes when there is a seeking of certainty when it comes to finances, because there are so many things outside of our control, as in every other area of our life, that it should not be a surprise that there's going to be uncertainty. And it's just a matter of, I think, kind of training yourself to ride that wave a little bit.
Right. There's a couple of data points that we were talking about earlier, the disconnect that sometimes shows up between the way we feel and what's actually happening out there in the world. And, anecdotally, last week I was meeting with a client and I walked in and the first thing they started talking about was just all the things that are going on in the world, some good, some bad, but all confusing. And the last thing they said was, and then there's the markets. And I went, let's pause there for a second. Is the market up or down? Is the U.S. stock market up or down in this year? And they're like, I think it's down. Nope. It was up about 3.5% or 4% at the time. That sentiment could drive behavior. The University of Michigan does their sentiment study, and there was a big decline in January. People start feeling bad, and we start getting a sense of it, but it's disconnected from maybe what's happening in your actual financial life.
I think that's an interesting acknowledgement that we do often see that misalignment, the misalignment between headlines, kind of what's happening in the world around us, and then how it shows up financially. And also how it shows up for the individual financially. We often do talk about kind of assessing the situation, trying to think through the process of, is this something I should be concerned about, or do I not need to be concerned about it? And let me just understand how it does impact me. I think when there's things, pinging at you, you get flustered and you have an immediate reaction to react. And sometimes that's not necessarily the best step forward.
Yeah, I think people tend to do one of 3 things. They either fight, flight, or freeze. And all of them can have impact on you. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it's a reaction to whatever's happening around you. And I think we start to see that a little bit. There's versions of fight, flight, and freeze that happen with people's money. What do people do when they're trying to find certainty in uncertain times? They sell things. They try and maybe sell their stocks. They buy things. Maybe retail therapy. They tune some ideas out. They focus exclusively on some others. What are some of the things that you've seen people do when they're looking for certainty?
I think sometimes there is a little bit of a testing too. Like they kind of they think through the process. What if I just maybe move this piece over there? I recently met with a client and that's how our conversation began. They're like, I'm concerned about what's happening around us. These are uncertain times. What if I just take maybe like half of my account and put it in something safer for a while and we let things settle out and then we go back in? I think you and I have had very similar conversations with multiple clients over the years. And that's a risk in itself. And especially when we know there's uncertainty, but we don't know how it's going to show up. And sometimes in a desire to make a conservative move, you're actually creating more risk to the overall plan. And I think that is easily overlooked, or can be, in the short term.
I think the way you framed that question is really important, because we hear people say, what if I just? You make it sound like it's just a little. It's not everything, it's just a little. But if you start what if I adjusting a lot of the pieces in your financial plan, the chemistry changes. They're all moving parts. It's a living, breathing thing. And one that I've heard in the past is, what if I just get out of the market and wait for everything to be fine? And we kind of look at that chart that shows all the world events over market conditions over time. It's like, can you point to me at the time it was fine? Because there was always some reason to be concerned, or something that was on the horizon. So it kind of sets up this false premise that there's going to be some point where we're all going to be fine and certain, which, as we know, that's usually when the floor falls out.
True. When sentiment is high, that's actually when maybe you want to start being a little bit guarded.
Yeah. Let's talk about planning for a minute. I think we talk sometimes about levels of engagement in a financial plan. Some people are all in on it. Here's a shout out to our engineer clients. They have their spreadsheets. They're really engaged. They're tracking everything. They've got their systems. I'd love to see the home setups here with how many monitors they have to keep track of everything. They're really engaged in their plan. Some people are more muted. They'll come in and they'll talk to us. They'll check in when they need to, and they kind of, we work well collaboratively. Other people, it's a little harder. And during times of uncertainty, we see them pushing it away, disengaging.
I've experienced it in the sense that they feel like there's so much change happening that they don't want to commit to maybe some of the actions that they should be taking. Estate planning, I think, is a great example. It's a tough topic. And when you're talking about putting together your wills or trusts or powers of attorney, kind of identifying those individuals that are going to help carry out your wishes, it's a tough thing, I think, to think through, but it is so important to the overall plan. But I think when there are periods of uncertainty and potential changes in laws, et cetera, sometimes that stuff just gets pushed away. I'll deal with it later once it's figured out. Really, quite honestly, all tax laws, all different policies, they have a level of fluidity to them. Yeah. And it's, like you said, it's hard to say, I'm going to do it at this date, because then I'll know where things land.
And I think it's sometimes, I get the sense it's the reason why a lot of people don't engage with a financial planner in the first place. That even if we're fortunate to work with a lot of families, but there's plenty of people out there that they might have kicked the tires talking with us, but we know that they haven't made any progress because it's just, some of these issues show up in money and health, right? I don't have a great relationship with going to the doctor a lot. It kind of gives me a lot of anxiety, maybe some of the same anxiety that people get coming to visit their financial planner. But one of the ways that I overcome that is to think, this is not the place I go to find out I'm not well. This is the place I go to find out that I'm fine. Yeah. And I wish more people had that idea about their financial planner. You're not coming in to be judged or be told that you have the wrong stock bond allocation, you haven't saved enough, everything else. You're coming here to find out either how to get fine or that you are fine, taking a more positive spin on it, and hopefully take a little bit of the anxious edge off of it to combat the uncertainty that you feel in the world. Does that make sense?
I think that's a really great example. And we hear it sometimes too. I mean, sometimes families will actually say that to us. I know I should do something. I know there are things to do, but it's too much. It's too overwhelming. There's too much anxiety right now for me to manage through that. But you're exactly right. If we can kind of break through a little bit of that and get to the meat of, we are here to be helpful. And by the way, you're probably in a better position than you give yourself credit for.
Right. And the earlier you engage, the better the outcomes. That's another parallel. So let's make sure we're not waiting too long so that you can make adjustments along the way. I think this is a pretty rich conversation. So I think we went on a couple different directions that we weren't expecting to go. One thing I'll close with here is, if you're thinking of taking action, the world's uncertain, you think, I'm going to leap over here and take this action or that. there's a framework that I've heard, I don't know to whom I should attribute it, but ask these 3 questions. If you take that action, say go to cash or something like that, what if you're right? What happens? What if you're wrong? What happens? Have you ever been wrong? Because it's that dose of humility to say, maybe I don't have all the information, or maybe I shouldn't be making such a dramatic action because there's a possibility it could go a different way than I expect. So I think that kind of helps to create that little moment's pause.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today. We are excited to bring this video to you, and we look forward to seeing you again shortly. If you have any questions in the meantime, we always welcome outreach, input, questions, however you want to connect with us. You can reach us at mortonbrownfw.com.